welcome to our virtual book club. We're going to be continuing Enchantment of the Faerie Realm by Ted Andrews. Tanya is not here today. She is on the road and on her way back. So if you guys want to send up a little prayer for safe travels, that would be amazing. Last week, we went over chapter 1 and the exercise that we were supposed to do, let me bring it up here, was we were supposed to go back and, reread some of the fairy tales from our childhood and see if we were able to put ourselves into the story and maybe understand it a little bit better. Did any of you guys get to do that? Or can you think of a story that you're able to put yourself into? Hi, Victoria. Hi, Tanea. Hi, Autumn. How are you guys doing? You ladies doing? Hi, Neri. So, my favorite fairy tale when I was growing up was A Pokey Little Puppy. And, dogs really do talk. They really do. If you listen to them, you can understand exactly what they're saying. They'll actually carry on a conversation with you. If you could, just study their mannerisms and see how they're acting, and even the tone of their bark will tell you exactly what they're trying to say. And I could so totally see myself being the mama dog in that particular little fairy tale. So, not really. Okay. All right. Well, we can go ahead and get started with chapter 2. So let's go ahead and do that. Bring it up here. We're going to go ahead and get started. At any point, if you guys want to stop and discuss anything, drop a comment in the comment section and we'll stop and we'll discuss. That's what this is all about. All right, let's go ahead and get started.
2. The Basics of the Fairy World. Before solid boundaries formed in the world, the fairies roamed freely. Though contact with humans was frequent at one time, the land of the fairies was always mysterious. It had different rhythms and rules. It had more of a changeable nature, and this often struck fear in the hearts of humans who liked order. As humans began to impose order and boundaries on the physical world, the borders of the fairyland shifted. The fairies and elves moved from the great forests to the farms of humans. Some employed their curtains of invisibility. In Greece, there are stories of the dryads whose bodies merged with trees. They can still be seen within the folds of leaves and bark, but when the tree dies, so does the nymph. Humans have tried to classify the numerous kinds of beings of nature. Every country has its own names for them. They were the elves of Scandinavia and the trooping fairies of Britain and Ireland. They were the Seelies of Scotland. They were the Leshy of Russia, forest fairies known for their mischief and curiosity. From Greece come many tales of water nymphs and sirens. There were divisions within divisions, but throughout the old world, belief was strong, especially among the Celts, Druids, and Scandinavians. This classifying and naming was also a means for humans to gain power. It helped establish boundaries and control over that which had always been indeterminate and indefinable. In the past, the fairies and elves were usually placed in one of two categories: those belonging to the wild, the peasant level of the fairy realm, and those belonging to the trooping fairies, the aristocracy of the fairy realm. This division is more of an English or Irish division and can be used generically for most of the fairy and elf kingdoms. Other countries had their own classifications. In Scandinavia, for example, there were two classes, the dark elves and the light elves. The wild fairies and elves are often solitary. There were rare meetings with humans, and the same is even more true today, with less and less land that is truly wild. Today, they often serve as guardians over those lands still relatively unimpinged on by human civilization. They do have the ability to shapeshift and will often appear as animals. Most of the time, though, their presence is evidenced by activities such as grass bending, depressions appearing in tall weeds, or a whispering of leaves when there is no breeze. The trooping fairies are often considered the descendants of gods. Included in this category is the famous Tuatha De Danann, the people of the Celtic goddess Danu. They possessed great magic and were skilled in all areas of life.
It's Tuatha
The
De
trooping
Danann.
fairies have great power, especially in the use of glamour. This is the ability of the fairies to make humans see what they want them to see, or even to see nothing when the fairies wish to remain invisible. Many tales exist about the experiences of humans kidnapped and taken into UFOs and spaceships. They are then subject to strange sights and experiences. When returned, they behave and are treated just as those who claim to have slipped into the fairy realms. Because the general public today assumes that fairies in fiction are one and the same, the trooping fairies use their glamour to create UFO encounters. After all, in this modern day of sophisticated technology and rational thinking, this illusion is more likely to be accepted. It seems more probable than a kidnapping to fairyland. The trooping fairies have also been considered the handsomest, and there are many accounts of them, and others of their realm, intermarrying with humans. In ancient times, the current of love between humans and the fairies ran deep and strong. It often held a great price, including death, but it also brought a joy that could live for centuries beyond death. The descendants of these groups and others are still around today, although there is rarely tangible contact. The curtains of invisibility are removed mostly at the whim of the fairies themselves. Still, there are ways to recognize the fairies and open to their presence, and it has begun by being humble, gentle, and guileless. If you remain open, you will be surprised at the kinds and the numbers you will begin to see. Although in the past, great listing and identification was attempted, today we classify the fairies along simpler lines. Many refer to them only as devas. This comes from Sanskrit, meaning to shine. This term applies mostly to those working in and through the forces of nature. More often, those of the fairy realms are grouped according to their level within the angelic hierarchy. This includes archangels, angels, devas, the multitude of fairies, elves, and dwarves, and even the elementals at the lower end of the hierarchy. Today, they are all often referred to simply as nature spirits. Throughout the rest of this text, we will interchange the generic term of nature spirits with the terms fairies and elves. Technically, they are not the same. There are variations, similarities, and differences, but these can be so numerous that it is easy to become confused. This interchange facilitates understanding and prevents us from becoming entangled in terminologies. Almost all nature spirits are intrigued by humans, even if they avoid direct contact. Many even require the assistance of humanity to live and evolve. They have as much effect upon us as we have on them, although we rarely recognize it. Unfortunately, as much as they may be intrigued, they are even more disgusted by human behavior. This has added to their increased withdrawal and reluctance to initiate contact. Not all of the nature spirits are able to withdraw, though. Some work for the maintenance of the earth and its various environments. They do this waiting for a higher degree of evolution of achievement in humans. Because of their level of development and their task in life, fairies are bound to suffer the consequences of humankind's maltreatment of the environment. Thus, a stream that is polluted will affect such beings, poisoning and often disfiguring them. They are bound to the karma and the effects of that pollution. For this reason alone, though it may demand greater effort, it is important to establish greater understanding, contact, and rapport with fairies. Signs of fairy approach and presence. Also refer to exercise 1 in chapter 1. 1. A sudden unexplained trembling or whispering of leaves. 2. A whirlwind or dust devil. 3. The bending of grass blades with no perceptible cause. 4. Sudden, unexplained chills and goose flesh when alone in nature. 5. The feeling of an insect walking through your hair when there is none. 6. A rippling of the water not caused by a fish, a breeze, or something tangible. 7. Extreme silliness and times of uncontrolled laughter. 8. An unexplainable loss of time.
Have you guys noticed any of those? Like a fairy encounter? Have you had a fairy encounter? Now that we've gone like over the signs of the approach and presence, can you recall a time that you may have been approached or touched by fairies? I know quite often, like when I'm walking and it'll feel like spider webs, and I'm trying to get spider webs or hair out of my face, and there's nothing there. And of course, like they were saying last week, um, spiders don't build webs in the middle of the air, not at face level. You know, they have not at like in an open field or open air. They need something to attach the webs to. Oh, Autumn, you want to describe your experience for us? What happened? Hi, Victoria. How are you? Okay, we're going to keep going.
The best times for fairy approach. All of the tween times. 1. Dawn. 2. Dusk. 3. Noon. 4. Midnight. 5. Equinoxes and solstices, especially autumn and spring. The tween times are those that are not distinct or definable. They are in between. Dawn is neither day nor night, and neither is dusk. Noon is neither morning nor afternoon, and midnight is neither one day nor the next. In winter, nature sleeps. In summer, nature blossoms, and the beings of nature are very busy. In autumn and spring, nature is neither asleep nor fully active. Thus, the nature spirits are less occupied and more accessible. With practice, you can learn to spot or sense fairies and elves at the edges of woods while driving or walking along the road at dawn and dusk. The best places for fairy approach. All of the tween places. 1. Where streams divide. 2. Intersections of roads. 3. Beaches and seashores. 4. Lake shores. 5. Fences and border hedges. 6. Islands. 7. Thresholds. 8. Bends in the road. 9. Stairwells, landings, and hallways. 10. Any opening in sea or land. 11. Glades and woods. 12. Tidal pools. Any place in the natural world that is neither one place nor another belongs to the fairy realm. For example, a river bank is neither the river nor the land. It is a shadowland. An island or peninsula is neither part of the landmass nor of the ocean. It is all a shadowland. One of my strongest experiences of tween times and places occurred on a canoe trip I took to Algonquin Provincial Park in northern Ontario, Canada. The campsite was on a small island. It was secluded and quiet. There was a raised area that seemed best for setting up the tent, and after setting it up, I decided to climb in and rest. Over the next few days, I found I was sleeping 14 to 16 hours a day. I would get up, eat, and sit next to the water for a little bit. But then I would go back to the tent and sleep. The sleep was deep and filled with colorful scenarios. I had vivid images of great, ancient underground communities. Animals came and spoke with me. On the second night, I was awakened from these dreams by the haunting melodies of loons and the song of wolf howls, though I had been told that wolves were rarely heard at this time of year. All this blessed me with some of the most wonderful dream and sleep experiences I had ever had. And yet, I could not understand why I was sleeping so much. It would not be until I left this spot and headed back that I realized the reasons for what had occurred. In addition to the altered state that nature spirits induce, especially in as wild an area as the one I was in, the island itself, as with all islands, is a natural tween place, and the raised area where I set up my tent was a fairy mound. I had truly experienced the Rip Van Winkle syndrome. Then, on the canoe trip back, I encountered wildlife: ravens, porcupines, river otters, beavers, and others that confirmed my having touched the fairy realm and the spirits of nature in a dynamic way. The habitats of nature spirits. It is believed that fairies and elves cannot be perceived by vulgar eyes. In spite of this, their habitats are uniformly described in most societies. They live everywhere and nowhere. They are always in woodlands and fields, and the traditional concept of them living in hollow oak trees is more fact than fiction. Any opening in sea or land might mark the borders of enchantment. Whirlpools, lakes, caverns, wells, tidal pools, etc. Intersections of any kind are points where the two worlds intersect. They mark points where there may be a thinning of the veils. This is why dusk and dawn are such powerful and magical times. They are the intersections between day and night. Many tales and superstitions exist about avoiding crossroads at these times. The nature spirits can be found in caves, across rivers, underwater, around lakes, between bushes and within trees. They can be found under human dwellings, and even within. They are always found wherever there are manifestations of nature. Fairy mounds are raised areas upon the ground, indicating their underground habitats. Fairy rings are areas of grass, marked with a circular perimeter of some kind. The pathways and habitats of the nature spirits will again become more recognizable as you begin to expand your own knowledge and perceptions of them. You will also find that certain nature spirits will be easier for you to perceive than others. Some individuals find them easily recognizable in waterways. I have no trouble seeing them in trees and bushes. Generally distrustful of humans, they are not quick to reveal themselves. Spend as much time in nature as you can. When you do begin to perceive them, it is often as a glimmer, just at the edge of your vision. You may see faces in shrubs or flowers, and you may even assume it is just your imagination. If you don't see nature spirits, spending time out in nature will at least make you more perceptive of their presence in other ways. You may catch a fragrance of a flower or tree out of the blue. Acknowledge it, for you are being greeted.
Shishi has just joined us. Shishi, have you experienced fairies? Had them approach you or touch you?
I've had them cause little chaos in my house. I've seen them out and about in nature. When I am, walking or doing hikes, you can see them flitting, but I have not had them touch me. That has not been an experience for me at all.
Because
What
I
about
was,
you?
well, I was saying earlier about like sometimes you can be walking along and feel like spider web on your face, and you're like trying to brush it away, and there's nothing there. I get that quite often, actually. And
I've only had that a couple of times. Usually when a spider web's on my face, it really is a spider web. I wish it wasn't, but it usually is.
a couple of the ladies in here have felt that like something crawling on them, but there's nothing there.
That I've had. That I have had. But I didn't like link it to fairies.
Yeah,
So that's interesting.
yeah, that's fairies. Okay, I just wanted to, ask. And if you see something at any point and you want to stop, we can stop and discuss that if you want. But I'm going to go ahead and get back to it.
Often, people walking in open fields will brush at their faces as if they have walked through a spider web. In an open field, spider webs cannot form at the level of the face. This
That's
is
what we
often
were
a
just
sign
talking
of
about.
field and flower fairies. They are always active in nature areas of flowers, wild or domestic. They are Tinkerbell kinds of beings, and they are especially drawn to children who are playing outdoors. Rock and stone spirits are also common, more so than people imagine. The popularity of crystals has drawn new individuals into contact with this group. In every crystal and stone is a deva or nature spirit that works with it. In larger stone formations, the spirits have a great antiquity about them and a great strength. These stone spirits hold many keys to prophecy, magic, and knowledge of secret treasures. Although they mostly inhabit areas of nature, it is not uncommon to find elves and fairies taking up residence under and in human dwellings. Usually, these nature spirits like being around homes with children and where there is a lot of activity. Many of the imaginary friends that young children have are of this realm. Those fairies that take up residence in the home can and do assist in the smooth running and protection of the house, but they can also be mischievous, hiding, borrowing, and rearranging things in the house. Tradition says such beings should never be explicitly paid, especially with clothing, or they leave forever. This is reflected in the old story of the shoemaker's elves. Occasionally, individuals of a group called the Dark Elves will take up residence in the homes of humans. They prefer dark.
I just wanted to throw in there that that's what happened on the Harry Potter too. Remember, they gave him the sock, and then Dobby is free. Dobby is free. Do you remember that?
I do, actually, and I was like thinking about it. Sorry, I was into I was getting to the book and I was like, oh wait, this threw me out for a second. No, I do remember that.
Okay.
Sorry.
No worries, no worries. We'll keep going.
Forever. This is reflected in the old story of the shoemaker's elves. Occasionally, individuals of a group called the Dark Elves will take up residence in the homes of humans. They prefer dark corners, attics, basements, and closets, and they usually only appear at night. They are not dangerous or harmful, although many people are put off by their dark features and strong energy. They can stimulate great craftsmanship, and those who are most creative at night may be surprised at the kind of inspirational assistance they are receiving from dark elves. Dark elf energy is strong, and because of this, their presence can be felt. And most people have felt their presence more than they realize. While I was growing up, my mother did the laundry in the basement. And it was interesting to observe our behavior when my brothers and I had to retrieve the laundry from the basement. The light would be flipped on, but it was never enough. We would walk calmly down the stairs and begin gathering the clothes. Usually, by the time they were gathered, the uneasiness could be felt. The eyes would search the shadows and corners. There might be a chill, or the hair might rise a little, and then we would bolt up the stairs, on tiptoe, of course, so as to disguise our fears. Then we would pause at the door to calm ourselves, and pretend as we walked through the door that it was all casual. Many people have had these same experiences in their own basements, closets, attics, or other areas. Consider how many children won't go to sleep unless they have closed the closet door and checked under the bed. Children are so much more perceptive, but in our society we train them to ignore it, or to chalk it up to imagination. Dark elves are solitary, but they are drawn to children and to homes with children. These kinds of feelings are not just stimulated by superstitious fears. Often, these feelings indicate the presence of a dark elf. Their energy affects our senses. It can cause chills and shivers, and a definite feeling of uneasiness or of a presence. The spirits of nature speak to us, often without us ever realizing. Have you ever taken a walk and caught the whiff of a pine as you passed the tree? Did you ever catch the fragrance of a flower, while those you were walking with did not? Did a tree rustle on a still day as you passed beneath it? Was there a ripple in a pond or creek, just as you sat down beside it? Did a bird ever come and sing specifically to you? These are often nature spirits, reaching out and speaking to you, and if you acknowledge them and thank them for such greetings, and it can be done mentally, you will find such occurrences increasing. The spirits of nature are found in all elements of nature: earth, water, air, and fire. Their presence and touch is soft and subtle. If you wish to begin your search for the fairy realms, open to the elements of nature that are closest to you. Look around you, because even if you are not aware of nature spirits, the likelihood of their presence is great. The following is a list to assist you in opening to the nature spirits and inviting their presence into your life. 1. Spend time in nature. 2. Meditate while sitting under trees, around lakes, etc. 3. Have plants and flowers inside your house or apartment. 4. Be cognizant of the abuses of nature and do your part to clean it up and reverence it. 5. Involve yourself in some creative activity on a regular basis. You don't have to be expert in it, but enjoyment of any creative activity will draw those of the fairy realm. 6. Leave an area in your yard to grow wild, so that the fairies can play freely. 7. Be generous in your dealings with others. They will often test this, as will be discussed in Chapter 11. 8. Keep the child in you alive. 9. Place an aconite, fossil sea urchin, on your mantelpiece. They have been called fairy loaves, made by the fairies. Those who had them would never want for food and would always have fairy assistance. 10. Sing often. Nature spirits gather wherever there is song and music. Fairy powers and behaviors. There is more to the fairy realm than we realize. They are not evil, as some would believe, but they can be very mischievous. Their energies are also very stimulating, with an ability to induce altered states of consciousness. Those fairies, known as pixies, are often blamed for travelers becoming lost. Their energy is so strong that they can confuse the senses, causing a traveler to miss a familiar marker. This intense energy, especially when in their natural surroundings, creates an altered state of consciousness. In this state, the traveler is less likely to notice his or her surroundings. Sometimes, travelers are misled out of sheer mischief. Turning one's coat inside out was believed to counter this dazzling effect of the pixies. This act actually forces the mind to pay more conscious attention to one's actions. Those of the fairy realm respond to life with feelings, and they have acquired greater natural control of many universal energies. Because they are not inhibited by physical form, they are capable of demonstrating many of these powers. There are, of course, different powers according to the different types of nature spirits. They all vary in their ability to affect humans and human conditions. Almost all fairies and elves have no true means of offense, and so, for their defense, they have other abilities, some of which include 1. Glamour. People see what the fairies want them to see, or see nothing when the fairies wish to be invisible. 2. Levitation. 3. Invisibility. All fairies, elves, and nature spirits have the ability to reveal themselves in physical form if they so desire. They will often take the form that the individual expects of them. 4. Shapeshifting. Many fairies and elves can show themselves in various forms. They may take human form. They may take the form of an animal. They may shapeshift to become a flower or even a jewel. They often will take the form expected by the human. 5. Ability to bestow good or ill luck. 6. Great craftsmanship. 7. Great musical abilities. 8. Control over weather. 9. Keepers of secrets of great healing and other treasures. 10. Ability to instill sleep or other altered states. Those of the fairy realm do have a sense of ethics, in spite of the mischievousness often attributed to them. They do have kindly impulses, and are well disposed to those who pay appropriate respect. Among themselves, they maintain a standard of loyalty. They rarely take oaths, as nothing is detested so much as a lie. They dislike babblers and those who betray secrets. They also dislike anyone who disrespects nature in any manner, purposely or otherwise. They hold in great distaste human ambition, slovenliness, infidelity, and inconstancy. It has often been believed that they will not show themselves in homes that are unkempt. They are well known for their amorousness and their ability to stimulate it in humans. There are certain taboos associated with nature-spirit contact. Being careful not to break these is important to those wanting to work with them. To talk about a fairy or a fairy gift in a bad manner will cause them to withdraw. Denying the fairy or fairy gift will also push them away and can result in a temporary string of bad luck. To reveal the presence of a fairy or the reality of a fairy gift without permission, or when it is supposed to be a secret, is considered a breach of ethics. But how do we recognize a fairy gift when we receive one? Fairies and elves often show kindness to humans, especially their favorites. They repay acts of kindness to nature through a series of good luck events. The individual may encounter an unexpected source of prosperity. In the spiritualist seance room, an apport, a gift from a spirit, may be given with the aid of elementals that help them to materialize. These may include special stones, shells, flowers, etc. These gifts often have special significance for the individual. You may find yourself out walking, and you will be greeted by a lovely fragrance. This can be a gift from a flower fairy. You may find a feather in your path. This may be a gift from a sylph to help you connect with them more strongly. You may have someone give you a crystal or stone out of the blue, saying, "I just feel I was supposed to give this to you. I don't know why. It is just yours." Many times, the nature spirit of the stone has sent the message to pass it on to you. This can be a wonderful gift from the gnome kingdom. Someone may hug you or compliment you, all as a result of the influence from the Undine kingdom. The nature spirits teach us not to take things for granted. They teach us to appreciate them and to take joy in all things. We should honor such occasions and give thanks for them, regardless of their source, fairy or otherwise. By honoring gifts, We show the fairies and elves that we are open to the gift of their presence. When we walk around fairy circles and mounds, rather than walking through or over them, we show respect. When we tip our hat or acknowledge a dust devil, we are acknowledging the sylphs. By not cutting down trees or tearing up bushes without permission, or checking with those who may be living in them, we honor them. The more effort we make in all these areas, the more strongly the message is sent to those of that realm. We are extending invitations. With constancy, nature spirits will make their presence known, and your relationship will be off to a good start. The most commonly asked questions about fairies and elves. What do fairies really look like? Fairies and elves have a variety of shapes and forms. They range in size from the very diminutive flower fairies to the great forest and mountain devas. They can be larger than the devas of the redwood trees and tinier than a firefly. Their shapes are very fluid and often indefinable. They can be beautiful or grotesque. Many can change their shapes according to their whims. Some often appear in human form. Many take the appearance of what we normally associate with elves and fairies, although this is done because humans expect it. The environment in which they live often determines their colors and shapes, as demonstrated by mermen and mermaids with their fish-like tails. Dwarfs living underground are often small and darker in color. Tree spirits will take the size and shades of the individual trees. Do fairies and elves have families? They do not have families in the way we think of them. Theirs is more of a communal life, in which the entire community or tribe is the family. There are, of course, many stories of fairy children and parents, but I often think this is more of a human construct to try to define their way of life. They do have a strong sense of unity to others of their realm, whether from their environment or not, unlike humans who generally consider themselves related only by blood. How intelligent are fairies and elves? It varies from group to group and individual to individual. Just as every human has his or her own level of intelligence, so do those of the fairy realm. Many are schooled in healing arts, especially in using the tools of nature. Many are also very skilled and knowledgeable about metalworking and are great artificers. Others, such as the elementals, are developing intelligence. They work with simple, repetitive, yet essential tasks, such as helping a blade of grass to grow or helping to maintain the human body. Over time, they will evolve and open to greater intelligence. Many of the fairy realm are known for their great knowledge, wit, and wisdom. The most common example is the leprechaun. No one has ever managed to cheat him out of his hidden pot of gold or magic shillings, for he is very old and has seen all of the tricks and deceptions that humans can employ. At the last minute, he always finds a way to divert his captor's attention. Another example are those known as the moss people, who often live at the roots or bases of trees. They are stern upholders of the old ways of life. Traditionally, they would insist on certain rules before they would ever consider sharing their secret knowledge, especially where to find the blue flower, ache no more, an aid in childbirth. They also have the knowledge to cure most fatal diseases, and they can turn leaves into gold. Do fairies and elves just exist in Europe, or do they inhabit other countries as well? Fairies and elves are found in every corner of the world. Although we often think of them as belonging to the domain of Europe and other areas of the ancient world, they are found wherever nature is found. They take on the personality of the environment and country which they inhabit. It is also believed, especially in America, that a number of nature spirits immigrated to this country along with the humans. The fairies and elves had lost much of their free lands in the Old World, and there was plenty of wilderness in America. Fairy beliefs immigrated with the humans as well. This has shaped, to a great degree, how these beings often appear when they show themselves. All countries have their own variations of fairy lore. Sometimes they are adaptations of European tales, and sometimes they are exclusive to one culture. What is the difference between fairies and those beings that might serve as spirit guides? Probably the biggest difference is that fairies and elves and other beings of that realm work more intimately with the earth and all its expressions of life. We may have a fairy being as a guide or spiritual companion, but most of our guides are those spirits who have lived in human form at some point. Nature spirits are usually found in two areas of our lives. Fairies and elves work to help reconnect us to the earth and realize our intimate relationship with it and all life upon it. They also assist in awakening a greater joy and expression of creativity in our lives. Other spirit guides may do this as well, but they will be limited in what they can teach us in these realms. There will also be more of a constancy in their appearance as they work with us. Those of the fairy realm will change and alter as we grow and awaken. Can those of the fairy realm hurt us? They cannot hurt us directly. As mentioned earlier, those in this realm have no true means of offense. They can use their abilities to trick. They can be mischievous. Fairy pranks range in intensity. They have been known to sour milk coming straight from the cow, or to affect crops and bestow ill luck when offended. It is important to become superstitious in this. Fairies are often known for their thefts. They can be the cause of things disappearing around the house. They are also good at rearranging articles and knickknacks. To the Puritans, interaction with fairies and elves was always suspicious, and they believed that fairies were part of the devil's family. Probably the greatest harm may come from the raised eyebrows you may receive from others if you express a belief or relay personal experiences about fairies. Those of the fairy realm are easy to work with and easy to know. If you disrespect them or an aspect of their life, that is, nature, you may incur some disfavor. On the other hand, in honoring and respecting their homes and their life, you will incur their favor. Apply common sense, and you will find your life enriched. Can humans and fairies marry? There is much disagreement about this. Long ago, when the human world and the fairy realm were more intimately intertwined, there is a strong probability of marriages occurring. There are many stories that speak of humans and fairies marrying, some happily and some tragically. When there are a great number of stories from various sources along the same line, it does deserve closer scrutiny. Traditionally, human and fairy marriages had clear-cut guidelines that had to be followed if the union was to succeed. These were often more clearly defined for men who would marry fairy women. First, the husband must not question his wife about her life before him. Second, he must never strike her. And third, he must not look upon her at certain times. There may, in fact, have been a time in which humans and those of the fairy realm could mate, but that time has passed. We can no longer mate in the traditional sense, but we can form very intimate relationships. There are ways to use astral projection or out-of-body experiences to feel the intimacy of such unions that is hinted at in many tales. I have heard a number of individuals profess over the years that part of the reason they are never satisfied in relationships or can't form them is because in a past life, they fell in love with a fairy being, and nothing human can ever bring them that kind of joy. We must be careful about making assumptions like this, as it is often an excuse for not taking responsibility for forming appropriate relationships. Are there humans who may still have fairy blood in them? This is often a question that arises out of the previous question. Some individuals like to believe that they still carry the blood ties of a life in which they were born from a fairy and human marriage. In most cases, this is self-delusion, especially for those that believe in reincarnation. Maybe there was a lifetime in which there was a fairy and a human parent, but that lifetime has passed. Many people see their openness to the Faerie Realm as a result of past life experience. The explanation is much simpler. As we will see in the next chapter, we each have elementals working with the various aspects of our physical and subtle energies. This gives us an innate link to that more ethereal realm. Most people choose to ignore this energy, and that is fine if it works for the individual. Others, on some level, have recognized it, but they have incorrectly assumed that it is an actual hereditary quality. Those who claim to be blood descendants of fairy lords and beings are often trying to make for themselves an illusion of uniqueness from a life they perceive as very ordinary. This does not diminish the validity of the individual's experiences with fairies and elves, but caution should be taken in making such assertions. How can working with fairies and elves help us? First and foremost, it helps us develop a stronger foundation in our reverence to all life on all dimensions. Fairies and elves can stimulate great joy, and they can help awaken our own creativity, even when we believe we have none. Different beings of this realm can assist us in different ways. Some of these wondrous beings are schooled in the healing arts and hold the keys to the natural cures for diseases. Some can assist us in developing greater craftsmanship in our life. Some can assist us in communicating with animals. The skill of the fairies in weaving and spinning is famous. Often, these tales are allegories for helping us spin certain elements into manifestation within our life. Those of this realm can help us weave our lives more productively. By their example of living and working, including the most mundane tasks, with great joy, we can restore our own joy and sense of personal accomplishment. What most attracts fairies and elves? Laughter is always an open invitation. Wherever stories are being told, those of this realm will usually gather to listen. Simple and sincere music and song are always attractive to those of this realm. These joyful spirits will often gather where children play and in any area in which nature is allowed to grow freely, even if only a small section within your own backyard. Wherever there is ceremony, joy, and color, these beings will be found.
Wow, that was very interesting. What do you guys think? Any thoughts about what you can do? Maybe some meditations, go outside, lay on the grass, sing some songs. But also, I was thinking, if you do take walks or go down to the river, look for those signs that they were pointing out earlier, for fairy contact. I'm finding this very interesting. I'd like to know what you guys think. All right, we're going on almost an hour here. So I think I'm going to go ahead and close out for today, and we will meet back up here next Wednesday at 1 p.m. Central Standard Time. I can't wait to see you guys again. This is a lot of fun for me, and I'm really learning a lot. I hope that you guys are learning a lot too. All right, guys, I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.